I'm Brandon, 32 years old, and I never thought my own brother's wedding would be the day our relationship shattered completely. Walking into that elegant venue with a $7,500 check as my gift, I was floating on excitement to celebrate Jacob's special day. Then the attendant handed me a paper badge reading limited access guest while others received beautiful name cards. My mother appeared beside me, face flushed with embarrassment, as she whispered those devastating words, "That means no plate." The badge trembled in my hand as reality crashed down. If you've ever experienced family betrayal, drop a comment below about how you handled it. Like and subscribe if you want to hear how I walked away with my dignity intact and what happened when my family came running after me. Jacob and I were inseparable growing up. Only 2 years apart, we shared everything from bunk beds to secret codes only we understood. Our childhood was filled with promises of being in each other's weddings, standing as best men, and remaining close no matter what life threw at us. We built elaborate forts in the backyard, defended each other from neighborhood bullies, and swore blood oaths of brotherhood under the oak tree behind our house. Our parents often joked they had raised one child with 2 bodies, because wherever one went, the other followed. That tight bond continued through high school, where we played on the same baseball team, Jacob as pitcher and me as catcher, the perfect battery our coach called us. Even when I left for college 2 years ahead of him, we talked daily. I helped him prepare his college applications, and he visited my campus almost every month. Those 4 years apart physically only seemed to strengthen our connection as we both matured into adults. After college, our paths naturally diverged somewhat, but our bond remained strong. I took a risk and joined a tech startup, eventually founding my own company that developed specialized software for healthcare systems. The early years were lean and stressful, but the gamble paid off. By my 30th birthday, my company had secured major contracts with 3 hospital networks and was valued at several $1,000,000. Jacob chose a different route. Always more cautious than me, he pursued a traditional corporate career in finance. He joined a prestigious firm straight out of business school and steadily climbed the ladder. He worked long hours and built a solid reputation as reliable and detail-oriented. While not as financially successful as my venture had become, he earned a comfortable living and seemed content with his structured environment. Despite our different career paths, we maintained our close relationship through regular dinners, fishing trips, and our annual brothers-only camping weekend. We celebrated each other's successes and provided support during setbacks. When Jacob was passed over for promotion 3 years ago, I took him on a weekend trip to Lake Tahoe to help him process his disappointment. When my company faced a lawsuit from a competitor, Jacob spent countless hours helping me organize financial documents and prepare for meetings with lawyers. Everything changed when Diana entered the picture 3 years ago. Jacob met her at a corporate retreat where she worked as an event coordinator for the hotel. Their romance progressed quickly, and within 6 months, she had moved into his apartment. My first impression of Diana was positive. She was attractive, articulate, and seemed to make Jacob happy. At our first dinner together, she asked thoughtful questions about my business and appeared genuinely interested in getting to know me. But as months passed, subtle shifts in Jacob's behavior became noticeable. Our weekly dinners became monthly, then quarterly. He started missing our annual camping trip, citing work obligations the first year, and Diana's fear of being alone the second. He became less available for family gatherings, often arriving late and leaving early. When he did attend, Diana was always by his side, their hands intertwined, as if permanently fused together. My parents noticed the change too, but cautioned me against saying anything. "He's in love," my mother would say. "Give him time to find balance." My father was more direct. "The first years with someone new are intense. He'll come back around eventually." I tried to welcome Diana into our family and build a relationship with her independently of Jacob. I invited her to lunch several times to get to know her better, but she always had a reason why she couldn't make it. When I sent her a birthday gift, a designer scarf, I'd noticed her admiring the thank you note felt formal and detached, as if written to a distant acquaintance rather than future family. Throughout these changes, I continued to support Jacob financially when needed. When his car broke down, I loaned him $3,000 for repairs. When he mentioned wanting to propose to Diana but worrying about affording the ring she wanted, I gave him $5,000 as a gift, telling him I wanted to help make their engagement special. He accepted these gestures with gratitude that seemed genuine at the time. The $7,500 check I'd prepared for their wedding had special significance. It represented the exact amount Jacob had once loaned me during my company's darkest hour, when I could barely make payroll and was considering closing down. That loan had quite literally saved my business, and I wanted to return it with the same love and timing he had shown me during a significant life transition that would strain his finances. My relationship with Diana remained cordial, but distant as the wedding approached. Any warmth she had initially shown cooled considerably after their engagement. She began to make occasional comments about how different Jacob and I were, emphasizing that my unconventional career choices wouldn't have worked for someone responsible like Jacob. She questioned family traditions and suggested changes to holiday celebrations that increasingly excluded me or minimized my role. The real trouble began 6 months before the wedding, when I had to miss their engagement party due to an unavoidable business trip to Japan. A major potential client had requested a personal meeting that same weekend, and rescheduling wasn't an option. I sent an elaborate gift basket and called during the party to congratulate them, but Jacob sounded cool and distant on the phone. Diana didn't speak to me at all. After that, communication became increasingly strained. Jacob rarely returned my calls promptly, and when he did, our conversations felt superficial. When the wedding invitation finally arrived, it came much later than those sent to other guests. I later learned from my cousin Ethan that most invitations had been sent 8 weeks before the wedding, while mine arrived barely 4 weeks ahead of the date, giving me minimal time to arrange my schedule. The invitation itself was beautiful, but contained noticeably less information than standard wedding invitations. No details about the reception were included, just the ceremony, time, and location. At the time, I assumed it was an oversight, or that perhaps they were planning to provide reception details closer to the date. Looking back, the signs were all there, but I refused to see them. My flight from Seattle landed at 3:30 in the afternoon the day before Jacob's wedding. I had specifically scheduled the end of my business trip to ensure I wouldn't miss any part of the wedding weekend. The meeting with our Japanese partners had gone exceptionally well, resulting in a signed contract that would expand our software into Asian markets. I was eager to share this news with Jacob, hoping my professional success might finally earn Diana's respect. The terminal buzzed with weekend travelers as I navigated through the crowd, rolling my carry-on behind me. Despite traveling for 12 hours, I felt energized by anticipation. In my jacket pocket sat the envelope containing the $7,500 check already tucked into a handwritten card, but I wanted something more personal to accompany it, something that symbolized our brotherhood. I called Trevor, my best friend since college, while waiting for my rideshare outside the airport. Just landed. Want to join me for some last-minute shopping? I need to find something special to go with the check, I asked. For the golden brother who's finally tying the knot, absolutely, Trevor replied. Though I'm still surprised I didn't get an invitation. I've known Jacob almost as long as I've known you. I brushed off his comment, though it did strike me as odd. Trevor had been a fixture at our family gatherings for years, probably just keeping it small. I'll pick you up in 30. Trevor and I spent an hour at an upscale shopping center before I found the perfect additional gift. A custom pocket watch with an engraving of the oak tree from our childhood backyard where we'd made all our brotherly promises. The jeweler promised to have it ready by evening. So how are things between you two these days? Trevor asked as we grabbed coffee afterward. Still seems weird that he didn't ask you to be his best man. The question stung more than I wanted to admit. We've both been busy, him with wedding planning, me with the Japan expansion, but we're fine. Trevor gave me a look that said he wasn't convinced. When was the last time you two actually hung out? Just the two of you? I realized with a start that I couldn't remember. It's been a while. But that's normal when someone's planning a wedding, right? Sure, but not making your only brother the best man? Not inviting your brother's best friend? Something feels off. I sipped my coffee, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. It's his and Diana's day. They get to decide how they want it. And Diana has decided quite a lot from what you've told me. I changed the subject quickly, unwilling to voice the doubts that had been growing in my mind. After picking up the pocket watch, I dropped Trevor off and headed to my parents' house where I'd be staying the night. Mom greeted me with a tight hug that lasted a beat too long. Dad clapped my shoulder but avoided direct eye contact. The house smelled of Mom's famous pot roast, my favorite meal that she always prepared when I visited. "How was Japan?" Dad asked as we settled at the kitchen table. "Successful. We signed the contract." I smiled, expecting their usual enthusiastic response to my business achievements. "That's nice, dear Mom," said distractedly, fussing with the table settings more than necessary. Something felt off. My parents were usually eager to hear details about my work trips. "Is everything okay?" "You both seem tense." They exchanged a quick glance that sent alarm bells ringing in my head. "Everything's fine," Mom said too quickly. "Just wedding stress. You know how these things can get." "There have been some changes to the wedding plans," Dad added carefully. "Nothing major." "What kind of changes?" I asked. Mom busied herself serving dinner. "Just last-minute adjustments. The venue had some restrictions we didn't anticipate." "What restrictions could possibly affect anything at this point? Everything should be finalized by now." "Brandon, honey," Mom said, placing a hand on mine. "Tomorrow is Jacob's day. Diana has very specific ideas about how everything should be, and we need to respect that." "What your mother is saying," Dad interjected, "is that it would be best if you just go with it tomorrow, for Jacob's sake." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. I wanted to press further, but something in their expressions stopped me. They looked worried, almost afraid, of what I couldn't tell. After dinner, I tried calling Jacob but got his voicemail. I sent a text instead. "Hey bro, just got in town. Excited for tomorrow. Want to grab a quick drink tonight?" His response came 20 minutes later. "Thanks for coming. Too busy with last-minute details. See you tomorrow at the ceremony." The formality of his message felt like a slap. No exclamation points, no brotherly nickname, none of our usual banter. Just cold, distant words on a screen. I learned from Mom that there was a rehearsal dinner happening that evening. "Just immediate family," she explained awkwardly. "I am immediate family," I pointed out. "Diana's parents are very traditional. They wanted just parents and the wedding party at the rehearsal." I went to bed early, telling myself that tomorrow would be different. Once I saw Jacob in person, our bond would reassert itself. This distance was just pre-wedding stress magnified by Diana's perfectionism and her parents' formality. As I lay in my childhood bedroom, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars Jacob and I had stuck on the ceiling 20 years ago, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. But I pushed those thoughts away and focused instead on the happy reunion I imagined for tomorrow, when my brother would finally see that no relationship, not even marriage, could break our brotherhood. Morning sunlight streamed through the curtains as I woke with renewed optimism. Whatever tension had built between Jacob and me would surely dissolve today. Weddings were emotional for everyone, and pre-ceremony stress could explain the awkwardness of recent interactions. Today would be a fresh start. I showered and dressed with particular care, selecting my finest charcoal gray suit, a light blue tie that matched my eyes and cufflinks that had belonged to our grandfather. Looking in the mirror, I felt confident and excited to stand beside my brother on his important day. Downstairs, I found my parents already dressed and sipping coffee in uncharacteristic silence. Mom wore a lavender dress she'd been excited about for months, and Dad looked uncomfortable in his rarely worn suit. "You both look great," I said, pouring myself coffee. "You too, son," Dad replied without his usual enthusiasm. Mom checked her watch. "We should leave separately. Your father and I need to be there early for family photos." Family photos. Shouldn't I be in those too? Another uncomfortable glance between them. Diana arranged the photo schedule, Mom explained vaguely. Very specific groupings. But I'm Jacob's only sibling. How can there be family photos without me? Dad cleared his throat. "It's complicated, Brandon. Just try not to make waves today." "Okay, for Jacob's sake." They left shortly after, promising to see me at the venue. Alone in the house, I finished my coffee and carefully wrote in the card to accompany my check and the pocket watch. I poured my heart into those words, expressing not just congratulations but my enduring love and support for my brother, recalling specific memories of our childhood promises to always be there for each other. The drive to Willow Creek Estate, an upscale venue 30 miles outside the city, took longer than expected due to weekend traffic. The property featured manicured gardens, a restored Victorian mansion, and a modern reception hall with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a small lake. Cars filled the parking area, and guests in formal attire streamed toward the garden where the ceremony would take place. I recognized faces from both sides of our family as I walked from my car carrying my carefully wrapped gifts. Aunt Patricia nodded politely, but hurried past without stopping to chat. Uncle Robert pretended not to see me entirely. Cousin Samantha gave me a quick, awkward hug before being pulled away by her husband. These people who normally greeted me warmly at family gatherings were suddenly treating me like a distant acquaintance. The garden had been transformed with white chairs arranged in neat rows, an elaborate floral arch at the front, and rose petals scattered along the aisle. Staff directed guests to their seats while a string quartet played softly in the background. I tried to locate Jacob, hoping to wish him luck before the ceremony, but a staff member blocked my path when I approached the mansion where the wedding party was presumably getting ready. "I'm sorry, sir, but only the wedding party is allowed inside at this time," the young woman said firmly. "I'm Brandon Mitchell, the groom's brother. I just want to see him briefly before the ceremony." She consulted her clipboard, frowning slightly. "I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell, but I don't have you listed as part of the wedding party or for pre-ceremony access. There must be some mistake. I'm his only brother. I can only go by my instructions. Perhaps you could find your seat for the ceremony. It will be starting in 30 minutes. Confused and increasingly unsettled, I wandered toward the seating area. A different staff member approached me, introducing herself as Amanda, the wedding planner. She was professionally polite, but seemed uncomfortable. "Mr. Mitchell, I was told to watch for you. Is there something I can help you with?" "Yes, there seems to be some confusion. I'm trying to see my brother before the ceremony." Amanda's smile tightened. "I understand, but the groom has requested no visitors at this time. He's finishing photos with the wedding party. I should be in those photos. I'm his brother. I'm just following the instructions I was given. If you'd like to leave your gift at the gift table, I can show you where that is." As we walked, I overheard snippets of conversation from other guests. "Can you believe how elaborate the A-list reception is going to be? Did you see the separate cocktail hour set up for the full-access guests? I heard they had to create different tiers because of venue costs." Amanda tensed beside me, clearly hearing the same comments. She hurried me past these conversations toward a table already piled with elegantly wrapped packages. "Here's the gift table. The ceremony seating is just through there. Your name should be on one of the seats." Before I could ask more questions, she disappeared into the crowd. I placed my gifts on the table, noticing mine was the only envelope among boxes of various sizes. Most couples preferred registry gifts, but Jacob and I had specifically discussed my financial gift and its significance weeks ago. As I turned to find my seat, I caught sight of Diana surrounded by 3 bridesmaids near the rose garden. She looked stunning in her wedding gown, her dark hair elaborately styled with tiny white flowers woven through the curls. Our eyes met briefly. She whispered something to her companions, then approached me with a tight smile. "Brandon, you made it. No warmth, no hug, not even a handshake." "Of course I did. It's my brother's wedding." "Yes, well, we're about to start final preparations. Your seat should be marked." "Diana, what's going on? Why can't I see Jacob? Why wasn't I included in family photos?" Her smile remained fixed while her eyes cooled. "We had to make certain decisions based on space and budget constraints. I'm sure you understand. If you'll excuse me." She rejoined her bridesmaids, one of whom I recognized as Cassandra, Diana's college roommate. Cassandra gave me a look that contained equal parts pity and smugness before they all disappeared into the mansion. Increasingly bewildered, I made my way to the ceremony area. A young usher consulted yet another clipboard when I gave my name. "Mitchell, Brandon Mitchell. Let me see. Ah, yes. You're in the last row, far left side." The last row. As far from the front as possible, despite being the groom's only sibling, I spotted my parents seated in the front row looking uncomfortable as they chatted with Diana's parents. They didn't see me, and I didn't approach. I found my assigned seat marked with a simple printed card rather than the calligraphed name cards I saw on other seats. On either side of me were empty chairs labeled "reserved," effectively isolating me from other guests. While waiting for the ceremony to begin, I noticed a guest list and program on my chair. Scanning the names, I found mine with a small asterisk beside it. At the bottom of the page, the asterisk was explained, "Limited ceremony access only." My parents finally spotted me and hurried over looking distressed. "Brandon, we need to talk before things get started," Dad said quietly. "What's going on? Why am I seated in the back row? Why does my name have an asterisk? Why is everyone acting like I'm a stranger?" Mom's eyes filled with tears. "We only found out the full extent of the arrangements yesterday. Diana and her parents have organized things differently than we expected." "Differently how?" Dad placed a hand on my shoulder. "There's going to be a check-in process after the ceremony for the reception. Just prepare yourself." "Okay." Before I could demand more information, the string quartet changed their tune, signaling the ceremony was about to begin. My parents hurried back to their front row seats, leaving me alone with my growing sense of dread. The ceremony proceeded like a beautiful but surreal dream. I watched my brother handsome in his tuxedo beam as Diana walked down the aisle on her father's arm. They exchanged traditional vows, their voices carrying clearly across the garden. Jacob's voice cracked with emotion as he promised to cherish Diana forever. Not once during the 30-minute ceremony did he look in my direction. After the final blessing, the newlyweds proceeded back up the aisle, followed by their wedding party. Guests rose and applauded. An announcer's voice came over the speaker system. "Ladies and gentlemen, please proceed to the terrace for the receiving line. Afterward, checked guests will be directed to the main hall for the reception." Checked guests. The phrasing struck me as odd, but I followed the crowd toward a beautiful stone terrace where Jacob and Diana stood receiving congratulations. The line moved slowly, as each guest paused for a brief conversation and often a photograph with the couple. As the line inched forward, I noticed a check-in table set up at the terrace exit, staffed by two young women with tablets and a printer. Each guest who passed through received something before being directed to different areas. When my turn came to congratulate the couple, Jacob finally looked directly at me. For a brief moment, I saw a flash of something in his eyes. Guilt, regret. But it vanished quickly as he shook my hand formally. "Congratulations," I said, searching his face for my brother. "Thanks for coming," he replied, the generic response he'd given everyone ahead of me. I turned to Diana. "Congratulations. The ceremony was beautiful." "Thank you for attending," she said coolly, already looking past me to the next guest. No hug, no meaningful exchange, no acknowledgement of our relationship. I was processed through the line like a stranger. Still dazed by this interaction, I approached the check-in table. One of the young women asked for my name. "Brandon Mitchell." She scanned her tablet, then glanced at her colleague with a subtle grimace, before looking back at me. "Just a moment, please." The printer whirred, and she handed me a white paper badge with "Limited Access Guest" printed in bold letters, along with my name in smaller type below. "What is this?" I asked, staring at the badge. "Your access designation for the reception," she replied, without meeting my eyes. "Please wear it visibly." All around me, other guests were receiving elegant fabric wristbands in various colors. Some had gold cards with their names beautifully calligraphed. There must be some mistake. I'm the groom's brother. The young woman looked genuinely uncomfortable now. "I can only distribute what's in the system, sir. If you have questions about your designation, you might want to speak with the bride or groom." I stood there, badge in hand, as other guests moved efficiently through the check-in process. Some glanced at me curiously. Others averted their eyes, clearly aware of what was happening. My mother appeared suddenly at my elbow, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Brandon, dear, let me help you with that." She reached for the badge as if to pin it to my jacket. "Mom, what is this? Why do I have a different badge than everyone else?" She glanced around nervously, then leaned close to whisper in my ear, "That means no plate." "What?" "No dinner," she clarified, her voice barely audible. "Limited access means you can attend the ceremony, but not the full reception. Diana and her parents decided to trim the guest list for the dinner portion." The words hit me like physical blows. "Are you serious? I'm not invited to my own brother's wedding dinner?" "Please keep your voice down," she pleaded. It was Diana's decision, and Jacob went along with it. They said there were space constraints, but what, Mom? She couldn't meet my eyes. "Diana was upset that you missed the engagement party. She said it showed where your priorities lie, and there were other things. Comments you made about their relationship early on, the times you couldn't attend events because of work. So I'm being punished with a badge that announces to everyone that I'm not welcome at my brother's dinner." "It's not just you," she offered weakly. "Some of Jacob's cousins and friends received the same designation. Did any other immediate family members get these badges?" Her silence was answer enough. Did Jacob agree to this? Did he actually approve labeling his only brother as unwelcome at his wedding dinner? Mom's eyes filled with tears again. He said Diana and her parents had the final say on the guest list since they paid for most of the wedding. He didn't want to cause problems with his new in-laws. I looked around at the crowded terrace. Guests with colorful wristbands and gold cards were being directed toward the main reception hall. Those with white badges like mine were being politely but firmly guided toward a separate area described as a brief cake viewing. So what happens now? I watch them cut the cake, and then I'm expected to leave. There's a small reception area for limited access guests. Light refreshments, a chance to see the cake cutting via live stream, and then, yes, those guests typically leave afterward, while the full reception continues. The humiliation burned through me like acid. My own brother had not only failed to include me in his wedding party, but had actually categorized me as unworthy of a dinner seat. The $7,500 check in my gift envelope suddenly felt like a cruel joke. "Where's Jacob now?" I asked, my voice deadly calm. "Brandon, please don't make a scene." "Not today." "I'm not going to make a scene. I just want to talk to my brother. He and Diana are already taking photos with the wedding party before joining the reception. Please, for all our sakes, just accept the situation for today. We can discuss it as a family later." I looked down at the badge in my hand. Limited access guest. 3 words that summarized exactly how my brother and his new wife viewed me. Not as family, not as the person who had supported Jacob emotionally and financially for years, but as an obligation to be minimally accommodated and then dismissed. Physical symptoms of shock set in. My hands grew cold. A slight ringing filled my ears. My vision narrowed to the badge clutched between my fingers. Around me, the happy chatter of wedding guests continued, oblivious to the fact that my world was crumbling. For a moment, I considered simply leaving, walking to my car and driving away, cutting my losses and preserving what little dignity I had left. But something kept me rooted to the spot. Perhaps it was disbelief, or maybe it was the faint hope that there had been a terrible mistake that could still be corrected. "The gifts," I said, suddenly. "Where did they put the gifts I brought?" "On the main gift table, I suppose." "Brandon, what are you thinking?" I didn't answer. Instead, I pinned the badge to my jacket lapel where everyone could see it. If this was how they wanted to label me, I would wear it proudly before making my exit. "Mom, I love you, and Dad, but I won't stay where I'm not wanted." "Brandon, please," she grabbed my arm. "Stay for appearances' sake, just for a little while." "Appearances," I repeated. "Is that what matters most now? How things look, rather than how they are?" The tears she'd been fighting finally spilled over. "We didn't know it would be like this. We thought you'd at least be seated at the family table. But Jacob knew. Jacob approved this." She couldn't deny it, and her silence confirmed everything. My brother had consciously decided I wasn't important enough to include in his special day. After a lifetime of promises and support, I had been categorized, labeled, and dismissed. Numbness settled over me as I found my way to a seat for the ceremony. From my position in the last row, I watched as Jacob and Diana exchanged vows, their voices carrying across the garden. The words about love, respect, and cherishing each other rang hollow in my ears. How could Jacob promise to honor his new wife when he had so completely dishonored the bond with his brother? Throughout the ceremony, my mind replayed countless memories. Jacob and I building a treehouse together when I was 10 and he was 8. The time I taught him to drive in our parents' old station wagon. The night he called me, voice breaking after his first serious girlfriend, ended their relationship. The countless times we'd supported each other through life's challenges, always secure in the knowledge that our brotherhood was unbreakable. The minister pronounced them husband and wife. They kissed and guests applauded. Not once during the entire ceremony did Jacob look in my direction, though I sat directly in his line of sight. After the final blessing, the newlyweds proceeded back up the aisle, followed by their wedding party. Daniel, Jacob's best man and a college friend I'd met only twice, gave me a quick, uncomfortable glance as he passed. The bridal party disappeared into the mansion for photographs, while guests were directed to a cocktail area to await the reception. I moved through the crowd like a ghost, the white badge on my lapel feeling like a brand. Several relatives nodded politely, but quickly found reasons to move away. Only my cousin Ethan approached directly. "This is messed up, Brandon," he said quietly, gesturing to my badge. "I had no idea they were planning this." "Apparently, it's how they handle unwanted obligations," I replied, trying to keep the bitterness from my voice. "Diana's parents are covering most costs, and they're apparently notorious for this kind of thing. Strict headcounts, tiered guest lists. But still, you're his brother." A staff member approached, checking Ethan's gold wristband. "Sir, premier guests are now being seated in the main hall." Ethan looked embarrassed. "I'll catch up with you later." But we both knew there would be no later. My badge ensured I'd be gone before the real celebration began. As guests with colored wristbands and gold cards were ushered toward the main reception hall, those with white badges like mine were politely but firmly guided toward a separate area, described as a brief cake viewing. The segregation couldn't have been more obvious. It was then I made my decision. I would not participate in this charade any longer, but first I needed to retrieve something. I walked purposefully toward the gift table I had visited earlier. It sat unattended, now piled high with elaborately wrapped packages. My simple envelope was easy to spot, tucked between a large silver-wrapped box and a crystal vase. As I reached for the envelope, Daniel, the best man, approached. He looked uncomfortable, clearly recognizing me. "Brandon, right, Jacob's brother." "Apparently that relationship means different things to different people," I replied, tucking the envelope into my jacket pocket. Daniel shifted awkwardly. "Look, man, I don't know what's going on with you guys, but Jacob's been stressed about the whole thing. Diana's parents have very specific ideas about the wedding, and they're paying so. So my brother sold me out for a fancy reception. Good to know where I stand." Before he could respond, I noticed my parents watching from across the room, their expressions concerned. Diana's father stood nearby, observing the exchange with narrowed eyes. And there, just entering the room, were Jacob and Diana, surrounded by their wedding party. Perfect timing. I walked directly toward them, envelope in hand. Conversations quieted as I approached. Diana whispered something to Jacob, whose face shifted from confusion to alarm as he saw me coming. "Brandon," he began, but I cut him off. "Congratulations again," I said, my voice steady and calm. "I just wanted to give you this in person." I extended the envelope. Jacob took it reflexively, looking confused. "I think you'll find the amount familiar," I continued. $7,500. The exact amount you loaned me when my company was struggling 5 years ago. The money that saved my business." Recognition dawned in his eyes. "I always planned to return it on your wedding day." A symbolic gesture from one brother to another during a time of new beginnings. I paused, making sure my voice remained even. "But given today's revelations about where I stand in your life, I think you won't need this anymore." Jacob opened the envelope, saw the check, and his face drained of color. "Brandon, it's not what you think. There were complications with the venue capacity, and Diana's parents insisted on certain protocols that labeled your only brother as unworthy of a dinner seat, that classified me as limited access, after a lifetime of supporting you." Diana stepped forward, her wedding gown rustling. "This is hardly the time or place for this discussion. Our guests—" "Don't worry, I won't be staying to disrupt your perfect day." I turned back to Jacob. The pocket watch was going to be my personal gift. An engraving of our oak tree, where we made all those promises about always being there for each other. Ironic, isn't it? Jacob reached for my arm. "Brandon, please, can we talk about this privately? We're well past talking. You made your choice clear when you approved that badge." I nodded toward Diana. "I hope she's worth it." With that, I turned and walked toward the exit head high, ignoring the whispers and stares that followed me. I heard my mother's voice calling my name, but I didn't stop. Outside, the afternoon sun was blinding after the dimness of the reception hall. I loosened my tie, feeling like I could breathe properly for the first time since arriving at the venue. My car was parked near the end of the lot, and I headed toward it with purposeful strides. Behind me, I heard the sound of running footsteps. "Brandon, wait." Jacob's voice. I paused, but didn't turn. He caught up slightly out of breath in his formal tuxedo. "You can't just leave like this." "Why not? Isn't that what the badge is for? To tell me when my presence is no longer required?" "It wasn't my idea. Diana's parents insisted on strict guest counts for dinner. They had a whole system worked out with different access levels. And you went along with it. You allowed your brother to be categorized as unworthy of a place at your table. It wasn't like that. They paid for everything. They had final say on the guest list. And not once did you stand up and say, 'That's my brother. He gets a seat at my wedding dinner no matter what.' Not once did you fight for me." Jacob ran a hand through his carefully styled hair, disheveling it. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Diana's parents have specific ideas about everything. They're very traditional, very focused on appearances. So traditional that they create a caste system for wedding guests. So focused on appearances that they publicly humiliate family members." More footsteps approached. Diana appeared holding her dress up to run across the parking lot, followed by her parents and mine. "Jacob, what are you doing out here? Everyone's waiting." Diana's voice was sharp with annoyance. "I'm talking to my brother Jacob," replied a rare note of defiance in his tone. Diana's father stepped forward, a tall man with silver hair and an imperious manner. "Young man, this is hardly appropriate behavior. You received an invitation to the ceremony, which was generous, considering the space constraints." "Generous?" I laughed incredulously. "I'm his brother. And that entitles you to what exactly? Do you know what this reception costs per plate?" Difficult decisions had to be made. "William, please, my father," interjected, looking mortified. "This isn't helping." Diana moved to Jacob's side, taking his arm possessively. "We need to get back inside. The photographer is waiting for the reception entrance." "Just give us a minute," Jacob pleaded. "We don't have a minute," Diana insisted. "You're ruining the timeline we spent months planning." My mother approached me, tears in her eyes. "Brandon, please, can't this wait until tomorrow? Today is supposed to be a happy day." "Happy for whom?" I asked quietly. "Because from where I stand today has revealed exactly what my brother thinks of our relationship, and it's not something I can pretend to be happy about." "You're being dramatic," Diana said dismissively. "It's just dinner. You can see Jacob any time." "Can I?" "Because for the past year, every time I've tried to see my brother, there's been some reason why it wasn't convenient. Some excuse why our traditions needed to change or be canceled entirely." Jacob looked stricken. "That's not fair. I've been busy with work and wedding planning. Too busy for your annual camping trip. Too busy for weekly dinners. Too busy to return phone calls. Or is it that you've been too busy becoming whoever Diana and her parents want you to be?" Diana's face flushed with anger. "How dare you? Jacob is finally becoming the man he was meant to be, not living in your shadow anymore." "My shadow? Is that what you think our relationship has been?" "Everyone knows you've always been the favored son," she spat. "The successful entrepreneur, the risk-taker. Jacob spent his life trying to measure up to you." "Diana, stop," Jacob said quietly. "No, let her continue," I said. I want to hear how supporting my brother, celebrating his successes, and being there for him whenever he needed me has somehow cast a shadow over him. Diana's mother, a petite woman with the same cold eyes as her daughter, joined the conversation. This entire scene is inappropriate. The guests are waiting. Jacob, Diana, you need to return immediately. He was never supposed to come at all, Diana muttered, apparently forgetting I could hear her clearly. The words hung in the air like a physical blow. Jacob's face registered shock, then dismay. What did you just say? He asked his new wife. Diana realized her mistake too late. I didn't mean it like that. I meant the reception, the dinner, because of space limitations. But her slip had revealed the truth. My exclusion hadn't been about venue capacity or budget constraints. It had been deliberate from the start. Well, I said into the uncomfortable silence, at least now we have honesty. Thank you for that, Diana. I turned to Jacob, feeling strangely calm. I hope you find happiness in the life you've chosen and the family you've prioritized. As for me, I'm going to respect the message you've sent today loud and clear. Goodbye, Jacob. I got into my car without looking back, though I heard my mother's voice calling after me, and my father trying to placate everyone. The last thing I saw in my rearview mirror was Jacob standing alone in the parking lot, watching me drive away, while Diana and her parents retreated toward the venue. The drive away from Willow Creek Estate passed in a blur. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, but I barely registered the familiar roads or other vehicles. My mind replayed Diana's revealing words over and over. He was never supposed to come at all. Not just excluded from the dinner, not welcome at any part of the wedding. My own brother had allowed his fiancée and her family to erase me from their special day, only including me at the last minute, presumably due to pressure from our parents. My phone began ringing incessantly within minutes of my departure. Jacob, Mom, Dad, even Ethan. I silenced it and focused on driving, unsure where I was even heading, until I found myself turning onto Trevor's street. Trevor opened his door before I could knock, concern etched on his face. Your mom called, said there was some kind of situation at the wedding. Are you okay? I walked past him into his apartment and collapsed onto his couch, suddenly exhausted. They gave me a badge. A what? A badge, like at a conference, limited access guest. It meant I could attend the ceremony but not the reception dinner, not the real celebration. I was essentially being asked to leave after watching them cut the cake. Trevor sat beside me, stunned. I don't even have words. Diana's parents apparently created this whole tiered system for guests. Different colored wristbands for different levels of access, and Jacob went along with it. So what did you do? I retrieved my gift envelope with the check I had written them, told Jacob exactly what I thought of his choices, and left. Good for you, Trevor said firmly. That's beyond disrespectful. It's cruel. My phone buzzed with text notifications. I finally looked at the screen to see multiple messages from Jacob. Please come back. We can work this out. You don't understand the whole situation. Diana didn't mean what she said. Call me, please. My mother had sent even more messages. We had no idea about the badges until today. Your father is furious with Jacob. Diana's parents are impossible, but that's no excuse. Please let us know you're safe. I sent a quick text to my mother. I'm at Trevor's. I'm fine. Need space right now. Her response was immediate. We understand. We love you. This isn't what family does to each other. Trevor brought me a scotch, which I accepted gratefully. Want to talk about it? Or would you rather be distracted? Distraction might be good right now. We settled in to watch a basketball game, though neither of us paid much attention to the score. The alcohol helped dull the edge of my anger and hurt, but the humiliation remained sharp and clear. Around 8 that evening, my phone rang again. This time it was Ethan. I decided to answer. Hey. Man, I'm so sorry about what happened, Ethan said immediately. I left right after you did. That whole badge thing was beyond messed up. Thanks for the solidarity. What's happening there now? Complete chaos from what I hear. Your parents left too, right after you. Jacob and Diana had a huge fight. He wanted to come after you, she insisted he stay for the reception. Her parents tried to smooth things over with the guests, saying there was a family medical emergency or some bullshit. A convenient explanation. Diana's pretty pissed that you ruined her perfect day. Ethan continued, the air quotes audible in his tone. But honestly, most of the family is on your side. Even people with the fancy gold cards were shocked when they heard what happened. I appreciate that, but it doesn't change the fundamental issue. Jacob made his choice. For what it's worth, he looks miserable. Last I saw before leaving, he was sitting alone at the head table while Diana danced with her father. The perfect wedding photos aren't going to happen. After hanging up, I checked social media, unable to resist the temptation. Several relatives had posted photos from the ceremony, but tellingly none from the reception. Usually wedding hashtags would be filled with dancing photos and dinner highlights by now, but Jacob and Diana's wedding hashtag showed only formal ceremony shots and a few cocktail hour images. The next morning I woke on Trevor's couch to more missed calls and texts. Jacob had tried calling 7 more times overnight. My father had called twice. My mother had sent a long message saying they wanted to meet when I felt ready to talk. I finally listened to one of Jacob's voicemails. Brandon, please call me back. Yesterday was a disaster. You're right, I should have stood up to Diana's parents about the guest list. I should have insisted you be included in everything. I got caught between what they wanted and what I knew was right, and I made the wrong choice. I'm so sorry. Please don't let this destroy our relationship. Call me back, please. Too little, too late. The damage had been done not just by the badge incident, but by months of increasing distance, and yesterday's revelation that I hadn't even been included in the original guest list. Ethan called again around noon. Thought you might want an update, he said. The reception basically fell apart after you left. Jacob kept checking his phone every 5 minutes, obviously hoping you'd call. Diana got more and more upset about him not focusing on her. They ended up leaving the venue separately. Jacob went to your parents' house, but obviously you weren't there. How do you know all this? Aunt Susan gives excellent play-by-play, Ethan chuckled. Plus I talked to your dad this morning. He's pretty broken up about the whole thing. I'll call him later, I promised. What about Diana? Apparently she's blaming you for sabotaging the wedding and refusing to acknowledge any wrongdoing. Her parents are backing her up, saying Jacob needs to control his family better. Over the next week I focused on work and avoided most contact with family members. I returned to my own apartment after 2 days at Trevor's politely declining my parents' invitation to stay with them. They respected my need for space, but made it clear they supported me and were angry with Jacob for his choices. Jacob continued calling and texting daily. I read his messages but didn't respond. They oscillated between apologies, explanations about Diana's parents' influence, and pleas for reconciliation. Not once did he mention Diana apologizing or acknowledging her role in the situation. Social media revealed that Jacob and Diana had postponed their honeymoon due to unforeseen circumstances. Rumors circulated among family members that they were in couples counseling already barely a week after their wedding. Diana attempted to control the narrative online, posting carefully selected wedding photos with captions about their perfect day and thanking everyone who had truly supported them. The passive-aggressive dig wasn't subtle. After 3 weeks of silence on my part, I finally agreed to meet my parents for dinner. They arrived at the restaurant looking tired and stressed. How are you holding up? Dad asked immediately. I'm okay. Work's been a good distraction. We've been so worried, Mom said, reaching for my hand across the table. What happened at the wedding was unforgivable. Have you been in contact with Jacob? I asked. They exchanged glances. He's called us every day, Dad admitted. He's a mess, Brandon. I'm not excusing what he did, but he seems genuinely remorseful. And Diana? Another glance between them. She's maintaining her position that you overreacted, Mom said carefully. Her parents are fully backing her version of events. Which is that the badge system was standard wedding protocol for managing large guest lists, and you created a scene over nothing. I laughed bitterly. Standard protocol, right. No one believes that Dad assured me. Everyone who was there saw how it was handled. Jacob needs to make his own choice about his marriage, I said firmly, but I'm not obligated to participate in a relationship where I'm clearly unwelcome. My parents didn't push, but their hope for eventual reconciliation was obvious. Before leaving, Mom hugged me tightly and whispered, "Family is forever, but that doesn't mean we can't establish boundaries when we're hurt. Take all the time you need." 2 months after the wedding, Jacob showed up at my apartment, unannounced. He looked terrible with dark circles under his eyes and wrinkled clothes. 5 minutes, he pleaded when I opened the door. "Just give me 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I let him in. He stood awkwardly in my living room as if unsure whether he was allowed to sit. "Diana and I are in counseling," he began. "Things have been difficult since the wedding." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said neutrally. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about what happened, about how I let her parents dictate everything even when it meant hurting you." He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I was so afraid of creating conflict with my new family that I sacrificed my relationship with my original family, with you. It wasn't just the wedding, Jacob. It was a year of canceled plans, unreturned calls, and growing distance." "I know, Diana. She was jealous of our relationship. She felt threatened by how close we were by our history together. She wanted to be my priority, my only priority. And now," he sighed heavily, "now I realize I lost myself trying to be who she wanted. The badge system was the final straw for me too. When I saw how hurt you were, something finally clicked. I should never have allowed that to happen. But you did." "Yes, I did. And I have to live with that knowledge." He finally sat down, shoulders slumped. "I'm not asking for immediate forgiveness. I know I don't deserve that. I just want a chance eventually to rebuild what I destroyed." I didn't make any promises that day, but I didn't close the door entirely either. Jacob left looking slightly less burdened, though still far from the happy newlywed he should have been. 3 months after the wedding, Ethan reported that Jacob and Diana were living separately. Diana had moved back with her parents, temporarily citing adjustment difficulties in the marriage. "Her parents are apparently still insisting you're the problem," Ethan said, "that you poisoned Jacob against Diana by overreacting at the wedding. And Jacob, he's finally standing up for himself from what I hear, told them that their treatment of you was unacceptable, and he should have said so from the beginning." 6 months after the wedding, our family approached the annual holiday gathering with trepidation. I agreed to attend after lengthy discussions with my parents, who promised that Diana and her family would not be present. Jacob would come alone. That reunion was awkward but civil. Jacob and I maintained a polite distance, engaging in general conversation but avoiding anything too personal. He looked better than he had during his visit to my apartment, but there was a new guardedness in his expression, a loss of innocence. As guests were leaving, Jacob approached me privately. "Thank you for coming today. It meant a lot to Mom and Dad. They're important to me. That hasn't changed." He nodded, understanding the implication. "Our parents deserved better than to be caught in our conflict. Brandon, I want you to know that Diana and I are divorcing. It's been filed." I wasn't entirely surprised, but the finality of his statement caught me off guard. "I'm sorry it didn't work out." "I'm not anymore," he said quietly. "The marriage was built on me becoming someone I'm not. The wedding was just the most visible symptom of a much deeper problem." As he turned to leave, he added, "The check you took back that day, I would have returned it anyway. I never wanted your money. I just wanted my brother back." 1 year passed since the wedding that had torn our family apart. Spring brought new beginnings, literally and figuratively. I stood on the back deck of my new lakeside cabin, watching the sunrise over the water. The $7,500 that would have been Jacob's wedding gift had become the down payment on this peaceful retreat instead. The past year had been a journey of personal growth, painful realizations, and slow healing. After the wedding disaster, I had thrown myself into work, initially using the distraction to avoid processing my feelings. But avoidance only works temporarily. 3 months after the incident, at Trevor's insistence, I began seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma. Dr. Marshall helped me understand that my pain stemmed not just from the public humiliation of the badge, but from the gradual erosion of my relationship with Jacob over the previous years. What you experienced wasn't just a single event of rejection, she explained during one session. It was the culmination of a pattern where your brother repeatedly chose his new relationship over his bond with you. The badge was simply the physical manifestation of a choice he had been making for months. Those sessions were often difficult, forcing me to confront uncomfortable truths about my own role in our relationship dynamics. Had I been too controlling, too expectant of Jacob's time and attention? Had I truly welcomed Diana into our family, or merely tolerated her presence while resenting her influence? Relationships are rarely one-sided, Dr. Marshall reminded me. While Jacob made choices that hurt you deeply, healing requires honest examination of the entire relationship. That honesty led me to recognize that I had indeed struggled with Jacob's growing independence as he built a life with Diana. I had expected our relationship to remain unchanged, despite the significant addition to his life. That expectation wasn't entirely fair, though it didn't justify the wedding humiliation. 6 months after the wedding, Jacob and Diana's divorce was finalized. He moved into a small apartment downtown and began rebuilding his life as a single man. We maintained limited contact, occasional text messages, and brief conversations at family gatherings, but the easy closeness we once shared remained elusive. My parents tried valiantly to repair the family fractures. Sunday dinners became a neutral ground where Jacob and I could interact without pressure. Mom avoided wedding photos or references to the event. Dad developed a new interest in fishing, inviting us on separate trips that gave him one-on-one time with each son. Thanksgiving arrived with traditional family expectations. Rather than force an uncomfortable reunion, I suggested an alternative approach. I hosted dinner at my apartment, inviting not just family but also friends who had nowhere else to go. Trevor came, as did several colleagues and neighbors. Jacob attended with obvious trepidation but seemed to relax in the expanded social setting where our strained relationship wasn't the center of attention. After dinner, he helped me clean up in the kitchen, a familiar routine from our childhood. "This was nice," he said cautiously. "Different but nice." "Sometimes different is necessary," I replied, handing him a plate to dry. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. Not just the wedding, but everything leading up to it." I continued washing dishes, giving him space to continue. "I lost myself in that relationship," he admitted. "Diana had such a clear vision of who she wanted me to be, and I was so desperate to meet those expectations that I forgot who I actually was, who mattered to me." "That happens sometimes," I offered. "Relationships can become consuming, but they shouldn't require you to cut off the people who have always supported you." He set down the towel and faced me directly. "Brandon, I know I can't undo what happened. That badge, that whole system Diana's parents created, and that I allowed, it was cruel. Unnecessarily cruel. And I will regret for the rest of my life that I didn't stand up and say no." It was the most direct acknowledgement he had made since the event itself. Not an explanation or justification, just a clear admission of wrongdoing. "Thank you for saying that," I said quietly. We didn't magically repair our relationship that night, but it marked a turning point. A willingness on both our parts to acknowledge the damage and consider the possibility of building something new from the ruins. The holidays past winter turned to spring, and I made the decision to purchase the lakeside cabin. It represented not just a financial investment but an emotional one, a commitment to creating a life focused on peace and meaningful connections, rather than dwelling on past hurts. Jacob helped me move furniture into the cabin on a warm April weekend. An olive branch I offered, and he gratefully accepted. As we assembled the dock at the water's edge, sweat dripping in the unexpected heat, something of our old rapport began to resurface. "Remember when we tried to build that raft at the community pond?" he asked, securing a plank with careful precision. "You mean the one that sank immediately and got us grounded for a week? How could I forget?" He laughed, the sound startling in its genuine warmth. "Dad was so mad about his missing power tools. Mom was madder about the mud we tracked through the house. For a moment, we were just brothers again, sharing memories without the weight of recent history pressing down on us." Later, sitting on the completed dock with cold beers as the sun began to set, Jacob spoke thoughtfully. "I've been seeing someone. A therapist, I mean." "That's good. It's been helpful for me too." He's helped me understand why I was so vulnerable to Diana's influence. I've always struggled with self-doubt, with feeling like I wasn't quite good enough. She seemed so confident, so certain about everything. I mistook her controlling nature for strength. I nodded, letting him continue. But the biggest realization was about us. I was jealous of you, Brandon. Your success, your confidence, the way you've always known exactly who you are and what you want. Diana played into that insecurity, made me feel like I needed to separate from you to become my own person. I never saw you as living in my shadow, I said. I always admired your steadiness, your loyalty, your ability to build relationships that last. My business success came with a lot of failure and uncertainty that you never saw. I think we both had misconceptions about each other's lives, he acknowledged. It's easy to see only the surface. As twilight deepened around us, Jacob asked the question that had been hovering unspoken between us for months. Do you think we can ever get back to how we were before all this? I considered carefully before answering. We can't go back to how things were. Too much has happened, and we're different people now. I saw his face fall and continued quickly. But that doesn't mean we can't build something new. Something that acknowledges what we've been through, but doesn't let it define our entire relationship. I'd like that, he said quietly. I've missed my brother. I've missed you too. The $7,500 that would have been Jacob's wedding gift had ultimately given me something more valuable. Not just a peaceful retreat by the lake, but the perspective to understand that while love might be unconditional, relationships require boundaries. That supporting someone doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. That sometimes the people we love most deeply are the ones who can hurt us most profoundly. Jacob and I were rebuilding one conversation, one shared experience at a time. Not returning to our past relationship, but creating a new one, based on mutual respect and clearer boundaries. The wound of that wedding day had scarred over, no longer raw, but still visible, a reminder of what could happen when we compromise our self-respect for the sake of keeping peace. As I sit here now watching another sunrise over the lake, I reflect on the lesson that painful day taught me. Family is important, but so is self-respect. Love should never require you to accept humiliation or erasure. True connection can only exist where there is mutual regard and consideration. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with family members who hurt you? How did you balance self-respect with the desire to maintain relationships? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. Remember that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for healthy relationships. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength and clarity in your own family journey.